Business Connections Live, the UK's leading online business channel. This is Business Connections Live with Steve Hyland.
Hello there, welcome along. This is Business Connections Live, the program for entrepreneurs, SMEs and business owners. Great show lined up for you today. On today's show, we're going to be talking about how we ask the same questions in business, but come up with different answers as the world moves on. It's a big question, isn't it? Joining me in the studio today is an international speaker of repute. He's been on the show before, in fact. This is his third visit to the studio here today. My guest on today's programme is Ian Dixon, international business speaker and one of the UK's leading business coaches.
How do I follow that? So,
well, you're going to have to follow. You're going to have to work very hard. Ian,
well, it took me 3 visits to get that kind of introduction.
Well, it's important, and it's interesting because if we look back at the original introduction, of course, it was just business coaching.
Yeah, absolutely.
The speaking career has really taken off, and you're all over the place.
I'm kind of hoping we get a chance to talk about this today because I did a big event last year about the expert economy, living in a world where we're looking to who are the go-to experts. Did a lot of research on that, and there was some real brow slappers for me. So we'll perhaps come back to it a bit later on. But yeah, you know, 14 years ago, I was sort of trying to make my way, and 14 years on, I get an introduction like that, and I'm waiting for the guy to come through the door.
Yeah, whoever he is.
Yeah,
well, when he turns up, we'll get you out of the seat and we'll replace you. For those people that don't know you, Ian, I mean, just give us a brief synopsis of what you're about.
Right, so 14 years ago, when I took on this challenge to become a business advisor, business coach, I went away and did a bucket load of training, and it became very clear to me that there were a lot of people doing what I do, but actually it was a bit of a Trojan horse. So they'll invite you in for nothing, they'll lock the doors and then try and sell you these really expensive courses and things at the back of the room. And I've always been about abundance and about giving stuff away. And we talked about it off air before we came on, is that, you know, a big thing for me is giving content away. And so for me, the last 14 years, of course, I need to pay my mortgage, so I need to earn some money too, but the primary role for me really is to give away as much good content and good usable information that I can, and that's what's got me here 14 years on, I guess.
When you're standing up in front of businesses, if there was one piece of advice, I mean, the audience that are watching us today, there was one piece of advice that you could give them that would make a difference, what do you think it would be? For many people, is it picking the phone up? Is it focusing where your attention goes? Is it being more direct in your sales approach? Is it doing more social media? What would be the one piece of advice?
You know, this is that thing I said to you about this, massive action doesn't necessarily get massive results. It's all of the above. So the one piece of advice is to do lots of little things. You know, this whole concept of, you know, that horrible image of a man digging a hole and he gets all the way this close to the vein of gold and they say just keep going. Actually, I think we live in a world where we should be digging lots of little holes rather than one big hole, because go that way, not that way, and do lots of little things, because so much in the world now is I describe it, we live in the world of the mayfly, so everything is just 5 minutes old, 24 hours old. And I've worked with clients, and in fact, we were talking about a company earlier that has been 18 months building a website. They might as well start again, because it's not gone live yet. So if it's 18 months in, it's finished. You've got to start again. So the one piece of advice I would give is do lots of little things. Try anything, because you never can tell what's going to be the magic thing.
Both of us know Brad Burton. For those of you that don't know Brad Burton, he bills himself as the UK's #1 motivational speaker.
Yeah.
Just in case you haven't heard of him, by the way, but that's who he is. And now, when Brad was on the program, what he says is that a lot of businesses go through this process. What you were talking about there, that digging of a hole,
yeah.
He described it as no money, no money, no money, no money, no money, no money.
Yeah.
And you just keep plugging away, no money, no money. Then all of a sudden, it goes no money, money.
Yeah.
And more money, and then more money. And it's you never know how close you are to that vein of gold.
Yeah.
But yet you're digging lots of little holes.
That would be my advice, is that, you know, with things like the social platforms, so I've got people that get nothing from Instagram, and then I've got other clients that have tens of thousands of people that follow them on Instagram. So I've got people that are doing the same with LinkedIn. So, you know, one of the things that I talk about, which is a new thing for me, you know, which is, you know, the whole sort of theme of today is understanding the questions are the same but the answers are different, is that up to about 2, maybe 3 years ago, I would have said, your website is the hub of all things. So on your business card, on your signage, on your print, anything. Even if you meet somebody and shake their hands at a networking event, or if they hear about you, they're going to go away and look you up on the internet. Okay, so your website would be the hub of all things. Over the last 2-3 years, I have, because I work with so many different businesses, it's great for me. I've seen people use a different central point, I call it your business centre. So everybody in business has a business centre. And their business centres aren't just websites. So I am married to an estate agent. So she's my landlady, funnily enough. Mm-hmm. And
let's hope you never get the eviction order then.
And so to plug Yes Can Do Estate Agency, I promised her I'd get a plug in. So down on the south coast, they have made, and who would have thought it that an estate agent would do this? They have made their business centre Facebook. And so their website is peripheral, and they have made the centre of all things wrapped around Facebook. And so they don't need to be technically able to update or modify websites, and it's interactive. And so they upload videos, they have interaction with clients. It's now, so they can literally stand outside an address and say, we're just about to put this on the market. So the way that we tackle business, fundamentally it's the same question, but how we approach it, and that's just one example, is completely different.
But it's interesting, you mentioned Facebook there, and of course we've just had the big problems with Cambridge Analytica, we've had the problems with the sharing of data and things like that. Businesses are going to be worried now about that. How often do we ask ourselves the question, in other words, where the centre of our business is? Was your estate agent the following morning saying to themselves, maybe we should be investigating other social media platforms? Or are they saying, well, listen, this kind of data infringement or data breach doesn't really affect us? I mean, we're talking about a campaign now that is delete Facebook. So the question is, do we keep asking ourselves repeatedly the question of where is the centre of our data?
It's a bit like, there's an element of trust. What you're doing with any of the social platforms is that you're giving them the keys and sort of saying, we trust our data with you. And GDPR is a big thing right now. And any of these big cloud-based platforms, we work on an assumption that they are ticking all those boxes. So if you choose, so actually we could go down a different avenue. So, but on the same topic. So. 14 years ago, probably about 12 years ago, and I'm still working with them now. I started working with a company that built a website, and they sold plumbing equipment, valves, radiators. There's nothing too exciting. They were doing about 350,000 a year. They'll do about £4.5 million this year. Massive growth over that time. And about 5 years ago, they started to look at eBay and Amazon. Flip that around, about 3 years ago, I started working with a company, and they started on eBay and Amazon, and now they're looking at a website. So it's exactly the same scenario, but because of the way that things have moved on, they've looked at the platforms and as their point to go to first, rather than round the other way.
So let's get the clarity then. What we're saying is then, so what is the question then that we're asking ourselves as a business? The question is what?
Well, it's one of many, I would think, is we want customers, don't we?
Yeah, but the question when it comes to where our business centre is.
Oh, the business centre.
How do we've talked there about having websites, we've talked about using Facebook, we've talked about using social media platforms as opposed to our own personalised platform. If you're in business and you're starting a business today, many people would say, right, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to have a website, and then from that website it'll spawn my social media content. Is that the right way of looking, or could you today, do you think, start by going, right, I'm going to start on social media and we'll see where that goes, and then that will then dictate to me what kind of website I have?
So for me, it's a bit of a cop-out, because my golden rule of business is that there aren't any, and so I can work with. So here we've got an estate agent that has absolutely smashed it with Facebook, and I could go and work with another estate agent that actually couldn't make it work with Facebook. They just don't get on with it. So the answer to the question is that you have to get into the sweet shop and try everything. Try all these. This is this thing of digging lots of little holes rather than digging this one big hole. And the great thing about it is that most of these things don't actually cost any money. They just cost time. So time to learn, experience, and to try different things out and find out what's. But the key message is the same. What is going to be my hub? What's going to be the centre of all things for me? So,
do you think the audience is changing, Ian? The people that we're talking to. I mean, we're just a couple of old blokes. And there is a generation coming up behind us who are, well, several generations coming up behind us that are probably more adept, but more social media and multimedia savvy than we are. Do you think that the people like us will just be perceived and become dinosaurs? The answer is yes, by the way. Unfortunately. I'm sure we'll get a chance to talk about millennials, and so that puts them in an age bracket by default. But actually, it's how they think, and that's not age dependent. I think that I'm just coming up to 60, and I know and understand how I sort of describe this mayfly kind of thinking process, that if something is more than 24, 48 hours old, just move on to the next thing. And I, on the last show, which has stayed with me, incidentally, I described social media as fish and chip paper. Is that it serves its purpose, but when you've eaten, it's a throwaway thing. And so is to absolutely know that you need it, but not to get strung up and hung up about it if it either you've done something you shouldn't have done or something isn't working right. Just keep moving on. So moving target's harder to hit. Listen, more. That's true, though.
I'm writing that down.
Write that down. Ian Dixon is our guest today. He's a business speaker and one of the UK's leading business coaches. More from Ian in just a few moments' time, right here on this edition live of Business Connections Live. It's great to have you along with us today. Thank you very much for being there. Maybe you're in your lunch break at the moment. It's great to know that you're joining us on the program. If you joined us last week, you might remember that we had Frank Furness. Familiar with him?
I watched the show.
Yeah, he is. What an amazing guy he is.
Yeah, strong, very strong. Very strong.
Something like 20 different websites. At one stage, I think, he had 300 websites. Each, can you imagine trying to look after that? Each one of those steady. Yeah, we can edit that out. Each one of those websites, of course, if each one of them was making $5 or whatever, then that's actually quite a good income. If $5 for each and every day, you've got to be so careful these days, haven't you?
Because
that will probably be the bit that goes viral, in fact. Merry Christmas, everybody. I'll tell you what, let's look back at last week's edition of Business Connections Live. We were talking to Frank Furness and websites as well, all 300 of them. It was a great show, some good advice as well. If you want to do a lot of online and internet marketing of your business, and where should you be taking your business in the future? Frank had some good advice. Just to give us a bit of a reminder, here's Frank from last week's edition of Business Connections Live. Now, on today's show, we're going to be talking about new media marketing. What does that mean? You've probably heard the expression in the press. Maybe you've read something about it and you think to yourself, listen, I'm sure I should be doing it, but I'm not quite certain what it is. And if I do know what it is, I'm not quite certain how I should be going about doing it. New media marketing. We've got an expert in the studio with us today who's going to explain all and tell you what you should be doing. Joining me in the studio today is Frank Furness, international motivational speaker, trainer, and author.
I think the biggest mistake people are making right now is I've got to get onto every social media platform. I've got to be on Facebook, I've got to be on LinkedIn, I've got to be... No, you've got to be where your clients hang out. Biggest mistake is people don't do any research. They actually don't ask their customers, well, where do you hang out? What social media platforms are you on? What do you want from us? What kind of content? How often do you want the content? When's the best time to post it? They will tell you what they want, and then you form your social media strategy. So let's take LinkedIn. What I've done on LinkedIn is I want to either sell myself as a speaker at a big conference, or I want to sell products to certain sectors. As I've said, there's 4 or 5 sectors. So what I've done is I've got a guy who works for me offshore, and first thing he does, every day he does 3 sort of generic motivational posts that go out on every social media platform, and he posts them at different times. But the second thing he does, he connects with 20 people on LinkedIn every day in each of the sectors. Well, yes, so here's the thing. I mean, you get all of these companies that'll charge you an absolute fortune. You get these, I get these SEO experts. We can get you onto the first page, and I Google SEO experts and they aren't there. How are they going to get me on the first page if they can't get themselves there, you know? So I've looked at this from a sales sort of point of view, because I'm thinking, what is Google actually looking for? How do you get onto the first page? Nobody knows except Google. But the one thing I'm finding is they're looking for social presence. If somebody types in certain keywords, do you come up? Does your business come up? Oh, most of the websites out there are absolutely awful. I mean, the old strategy, I'll get my brother's uncle's cousin to do it for me. I'll give him $100. And I still see those websites. Nowadays, people, first impressions are everything, and so many CEOs I speak to say, if I go into a website and it looks terrible, I'm out of there. I don't want to do business with that company. What we're looking for is information to help us make a decision to do something. So as a business, how much information are you actually putting out there to let people find you? And most businesses aren't doing blogs, they're not doing any postings. How are they ever going to be found and be seen as experts? Any business out there have got to have a digital strategy, and they now can get onto that even playing platform. I'm starting to do some work with one business, and at the moment I can't say too much about them, but they spend $100,000 a month on Facebook advertising. So here's an idea. If you're a business, think about 8 questions that people ask you all the time. Whatever kind of business, we've got a TV studio. What does it cost me to hire a studio? How long does it take? How long is the post-production? Every one of those is a question. You can turn those into an article. Now you've got an article. The first place the article goes is to Blogger. Google owns Blogger. You promote it with Google+. Next place it goes is onto your website. Same article. Same article now goes onto LinkedIn. You promote it with Facebook. You promote it with all the other social media channels. You now record it as a podcast. Goes out to all the podcast channels. Okay, so there's a lot of things you've got to do. First thing is get that strategy in place. Get a great website. Find the right kind of people to do the keyword analysis. Find out what your audience want. Ask them what they want. Then get out there and create the social media. Create once, publish everywhere. And then the other big thing we didn't even mention was please respond to what everyone is doing. So if somebody's going to be putting comments on your YouTube, don't just leave it there. Go back. Someone's going into your LinkedIn, they're putting some stuff in there. Please go back again. And one last thing, Steve, I've just written an ebook, 80-page ebook on the best times to post on social media, because get up in the morning, first thing we do is look at the phone. So is that the best time to post? If anyone wants it, they can just contact me, frank@frankfurness.com, and they can get a free download, an extra bonus for the program. So this is Frank Furness. Thanks for having me on the show. It's been absolutely brilliant.
Just a really nice bloke, actually, as well. Frank Furness. He was on last week's edition of Business Connections Live. A lot of great business advice for you as well. If you do want to visit his website, you'll find all the details if you go along to our website, and you'll get his URLs and everything that you need there to get in contact with Frank. You'll also be able to download that PDF that he was talking about as well. Some good tools on there if you're in business. Our website, if you want to go to it, over 250 hours, nearly 300 hours of great business advice sitting there. Just go to businessconnectionslive.com. Don't forget, if you wanted to drop us an email, that's going to be dead easy for you to do as well. Drop us an email to the studio at businessconnectionslive.com. But why don't you pick the phone up? That's my New Year's resolution. I know we're a little bit into the year now, but that's what it is. Talk to people. I think a lot of us go around trying not to talk to people. We want to use social media. We want to use LinkedIn. We want to use Facebook. We want to do all those kind of things. We just don't want to pick the phone up and go, hello, and talk to somebody, I suggest you do give us a ring, 01784 256 777. If you'd like to appear on the programme, you can give us a call on that telephone number as well. Don't forget as well, BCL Business TV, you can follow our stream of consciousness. You can also watch the programme and comment on the programme at Facebook. But more importantly, please do visit the website. Yep, back to the first one again, at businessconnectionslive.com, because that's where all the programmes are, and that is the place that you will find every single show. You'll find details, downloads and show notes as well. You're watching Business Connections Live. A great guest with us today. My guest on today's show is Ian Dixon. He's an international business speaker and one of the UK's leading business coaches. He's been around for a few years now. He's been around the block. He knows what's going on. Third time on the programme, and it's great to have him back. We were alluding to the new young things that are around the corner, the millennials who are coming up. So there's several generations that are chasing us at the moment. Some of them with enhanced skills, or maybe they've lived with some of the technology that we're using today that we've had to learn. They seem to just be growing up with it. How do we approach that? What do we do about that?
Right, so the first thing I would say is they're not coming around the corner. They're here. So, and I don't want to sort of tar them with a single brushstroke. It is, and actually the term millennial can be misleading because it goes back as far as the 80s and up as the late 1990s. And I'm really talking or referring more to the ones that are in their early 20s. Because I see these guys now turning up as customers, as suppliers, as members of staff, but more importantly as competitors. And it's just that you know, some of these millennials, for want of a better word, if you ask them, they wouldn't even know what a Yellow Pages is. So you know, so they don't even, their brain isn't muddled with some of the old ways of thinking from a business perspective. And I meet people that are still in that kind of, you know, we've probably just isolated a large group of people that are in Yellow Pages. But, you know... There
are people going, we don't even know what Yellow Pages are.
Exactly. So, you know...
It's Chinese wrapping paper, isn't
Exactly. It? So all they know... you don't know what it is. So...
No, I do. Trust me. It's a directory. Imagine a great big book, this thick, with loads of businesses in. Because I find it really interesting when you watch The Apprentice. They don't allow them to use the technology.
No.
They go, there is a copy of, other directories are available, but Yellow Pages, get on with it.
So I got into so much trouble. I did a talk in a keynote at a business event in Basingstoke about 5-6 years ago. And one of the things I talked about was the fact that Yellow Pages is so redundant now, it doesn't even fulfil its primary purpose in our house. It's not thick enough to keep the door open anymore. And the event was sponsored by Yell.com, and the chief sponsor was in the audience, and he pulled me afterwards, and you can imagine he wasn't very happy. So
was that a repeat booking?
But the millennials are very technically minded. Let's go back on me. Very technically minded. They are trendsetters. So, you know, they will start things off, educate us older ones, and are educating the youngsters that are coming through too. So they like to be on the front end of the early adopters curve, so they will buy early. And if anybody buys early, I'm a gadget guy. If I buy early, I expect to pay more for it. I know because I'm an early adopter that I'm going to have to pay more for it. So from a customer perspective, business owners that are watching the show, they need to, you know, what does it say, be the squirrel. You know, you've got to get in the mindset and understand who these people are. Pull them around you. You know, I'm not saying that they are fundamentally different, but there are aspects about the way that they go about their day that is different. Not because of DNA. It's just that they just don't have the exposure to the things that you and I remember. 4 channels on the TV. You know, it's just like we go back that far. That's not even imaginable to these kids today.
So what then about businesses that are in... I mean, do you divide businesses like this so that we've got the older generation, the us's? So this is the managing director that you go into and you say, how much work are you doing on social media? And you say, I don't believe in it. It's never worked for us. Is that part of the problem? Is that part of the struggle that you see as a business coach, that we've got to educate people of certain generations on the different tools that are available out there and then explain the most beneficial way that they can use them?
Right, so this isn't a plug, but I've got an event coming up in April.
Have you?
Yeah, which I'm sure we'll get to talk about because I haven't bought my book, so
Right.
we'll talk about the event. But early years, I would do events, so 14 years ago, I would send out between 2,000 and 3,000 licked and stamped invites to an event, okay? We would invite maybe as many as 6,000 to 7,000 people through an insert in a magazine, and the social platforms didn't exist, so not in the way that they are today. So this event in April, so 14 years on, I've literally just done 1,000 print. I don't even know if I'm going to need them. So because the 89 people that have booked to date have all booked through the social platforms, and they're coming from all over the UK. So it's the same question. I want to fill an event, but the way that we've gone about it is fundamentally different. Now, if I didn't embrace the social platforms, what am I going to do? Am I going to do it the old way? So am I going to be sticking stamps on? So to answer the question, if I work with a business owner that either doesn't get it, doesn't want to embrace the social platforms, I call that a constraint. So if it's a constraint, it's something that I don't like or I'm not interested in doing. I can give that away. So now that's going to cost me perhaps a little bit of money, but then I can use that time that I'm getting back, and I know that my social activity is going on, my social media activity is going on. The short answer is that you need to be in it to win it. You've got to play the game. If you're not on the pitch, you can't score a goal.
What about lists then? Is it important? Are you working from your list that you have built? Are you just using social media doing a buckshot effect by getting it out there using social media advertising? Or do you still see it's important to have a prospect list that you have built by capturing names from the networking? Where are those clients coming from? Because that fundamentally, isn't that what everybody that's watching this wants? If you're building your event, you're looking at, you call it your 100 event, don't you?
The big 100, yeah.
The big 100, so it's 100 people.
100 business tips in 6 hours. It's one every 3 minutes.
That's a lot. Yeah. But you didn't start cold with that, did you? You didn't go, right, there is nobody that I know that I am specifically targeting for this. You were just targeting a specific type, or did you say, I have a list of 1,000 people, 1,500, 2,000 people, and I'm going to contact them first? How did it start?
No list.
No list?
No list. So social media saved my bacon, because about 6 years ago I stopped keeping records, data records. Data records are important for business, don't get me wrong. My business was steady. I got lazy from a marketing perspective, and I just basically stopped collecting it and stopped keeping it up to date. And then the social platforms, I became in the top 100 coaches in the world to follow on Twitter. Facebook grew very quickly, a big LinkedIn following, and so that became my lists essentially. So it very much.
So you're
saved
marketing
me.
to those lists.
Yeah. So I don't create those lists, or you can create searches based on those lists. So I use the social platforms, and of course I get around. So because I'm a speaker, somebody said to me just so profoundly 14 years ago, if you want to be successful in business, get on stage. So, and back then it was quite literally stage, get on stage. Well, if you take it to the modern day equivalent now, a stage could be, this is a stage. So
well, a lot of people are talking about, I mean, that's exactly what this is, virtual presentations.
Massively profound thing. I'm an introvert by nature, and so I had to learn to embrace the this whole concept of getting up in front of people and sharing. So back then it was literally a stage, which I still do, but of course we have other stages that we can now use. So whether it's just picking up our phone and doing a Facebook Live, or putting up something onto LinkedIn that lots of people like. I can remember posting up literally just a selfie of me outside a cinema in Reading, because I was going in to do a talk at the View Cinema in Reading. They'd hired out one of the theatres in there. It's like 2,000-3,000 people view an image. So it's just a picture of me with the View Cinema.
Question then, what social media platforms did you use to do the advertising for your course? Which ones were they? Easy answer. It was?
Facebook.
Any others?
LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram. That's probably...
That was about it?
Yeah.
Which one got you the majority of the audience?
Facebook. So, but then that's my primary weapon of choice. So, but, that, like I say, the golden rule is that there aren't any. That's just... I've worked with a lady...
Question then, target audience. Multinationals or corporates or small SMEs end users?
All of the above, But if you ask me to pick just one, SME and then users. So.
And what kind of profile have you got from the people that have responded back that are coming? Are they one-man bands, or are they multiple? Are they proper SMEs, up to 10, 20 people?
Yeah, up to 2 million turnover.
See, I find that interesting. Depending on the platform that you use, will depend on who you're going to get back.
Yeah.
And I suppose, in my mind's eye, Facebook it's to a person. Whereas LinkedIn, I always feel I'm going more corporate. I'm going to a CEO or a marketing director or manager or whatever.
And then, but I can I go back to the yes can do estate agents, and you throw that's the proverbial sort of fly in the soup. Is that's a very, that's millions of pounds worth of property being turned over. They have videos of property worth £750,000 to £1 million being shown on Facebook. So you wouldn't think Facebook would be a place for people to do business on there, but there's an example where you can make that work.
Briefly, then, do you think Facebook will be here this time next year?
Oh yeah, absolutely, this time next year. But this whole concept of everything we're talking about is
all those little holes.
Keep moving and dig lots of little holes, because you just never know which one of those might have that. I work with a nutritionist in London. She's used Instagram massively successfully. So to the extent she'll post up an invite, a picture of an invite to an event, and that will fill an event on Instagram. So I know people that are using Pinterest that way. So,
well, good for her.
Yes.
How much time do you think you should be spending on it? Is it the length of time? I mean, people get lost. You can lose yourself for hours on social media. How much time would you recommend to a business owner these days? Regular amount of time per day. Is it the length of time to drink a cup of coffee?
Exactly that. So
I know that because it's written here.
So one of the things that I get asked a lot is how much time should I spend on this stuff? And I say, if you drink a beverage every day, and my sort of beverage of choice is coffee. If you drink a coffee, pour yourself a nice mug of coffee, get yourself in front of your screen. By the time you've drunk that coffee, step away. And if you are fortunate enough to get another mug of coffee later in the day, drink that mug of coffee, do some social media activity, then step away. Daily, every single day, there should be some activity going on, interactive, two-way engagement kind of activity. But look, I'm just making this up in as much that I don't think there are any rules. It's just my take on it. It's just how I've embraced it, and this is how I've been using it. And then what happens is you build this community that is then essentially your data list, so that you would go out to get to come to an event. I've got these three numbers, this 7, 10, 5. So 7 hours of exposure, 10 times 5 different ways before people will start to show any interest in what you do. And then we have these social platforms to start chipping away at your 7 hours 10 different times in 5 different ways. So
explain more about that in just a few moments' time, because I'd like to find out more about that, and I'm sure you're going to find it interesting as well on this edition of Business Connections Live. My guest today is Ian Dixon. You're watching Business Connections Live. Great to have your company as always. Let's go back and get some more great advice for you. If we go back to a programme, it's Business Connections Live 179. It went out on the 24th of April 2017. Innovation for Growth. We talked to Costas. He's one of the founding partners of the Happen Group. They are a large multinational advertising agency that you've never heard of, but they are influencing you on a daily basis. The whole programme was really about what you can do with what you've already got. Innovation for growth, in essence, spot the frustrations your consumers have, then answer those needs with a product or a service that is commercially viable. You may even already have the tools within your organisation. Regardless of the size of your team, you should always be looking for more and better ways to be innovative. So let's go back then and get some key words of advice from Costas, who joined us on Business Connections Live.
Well, thank you for listening. It's been a real pleasure. My name is Costas from Happen, innovation agency servicing crowded markets across the globe. When you're innovating, whether it's from a small business or a larger business, there's really 4 things that you need to keep an eye on. One is understand why you're innovating. What's the business reason for actually even doing anything? which means you need to understand, are you solving a big problem or a small problem? The second is work on insights that you can actually act upon. So if you're working in a salad business and you're creating salads, spend some time with people while they're eating salads if you want to see some new things. Don't get it from reports that talk about what it was like when people were thinking about eating salads. The third one is create ideas that actually make commercial sense, and that might be not copying your competition, but do things that are right for you. And the fourth one is energize the business into action, which means it's not just the people creating the ideas that are going to push it through. The whole organization needs to sit behind it, which goes all the way from the top all the way to the bottom, because there are a lot of naysayers probably scattered around any organization, and it's making sure that they go into yes mode that will really help your ideas fly. That's what it comes down to. It's what we've been doing for 10 years.
If you get a chance, I do suggest you watch the programme. Unpronounceable surname, he does it very well. I didn't. You can actually watch the entire programme. Went out April 2017. It's called Innovation for Growth. It was Business Connections Live 179. And it was just a great show. And I think the thing is when you find that within your organisation you actually already have the tools, but the innovation comes from the way that you use those tools. And that's what he was talking about. You probably have all the tools you need to be a success, to innovate what you're doing. Maybe the technology you have within your business is already there that will allow you to maybe approach and resolve a problem in a different way. During the program, Costas discusses that. We discover how you as a business can actually go about and maybe apply that to your organisation and to your business. Great show. As I said, it went out on the 24th of April 2017, and the program is called Innovation for Growth. If you go to businessconnectionslive.com and just type in innovation, then it will come up. There's the website again for you. That's businessconnectionslive.com. Just type in innovation and the job will be a good one, as they say. You're watching Business Connections Live. My guest on today's show is Ian Dixon. He's an international business speaker. He's also one of the UK's leading business coaches. Just before we heard there on our break, you were talking about 7-10-5, and you kind of started to explain it. Just go through this process again, because people love this, don't they? Right. People like tips and tricks and hints, and they like, and this has got everything. It's a triplet as well. Yeah. So a 7-10-5. Yeah. Kick off at the 7 first of all. Right.
So let me just come back just a fraction. So it's a Google. I think it's a Google statistic that I stole and Ianized, which was 7-11-4. And the reason why I went 7-10-5 is for the last 10 years I've been using a marketing document, which is a single page sheet, which our viewer can take away, which is literally 5 core strategies and 10 activities per month. That is all you need to generate a marketing plan. 5 core strategies and 10 activities against those 5 core. So when I saw this 7-11-4, I thought, well, that actually works well with 7-10-5. So how it basically works is, if you want to have a good understanding of how much should I be doing in order to generate enough interest in what I do, then this is the rules to apply. So 7 hours of exposure, 10 different
Is that
times.
On stage, on video, on social media?
I could be following a van-wrapped car for 15 minutes and all I see is Business Connections Live. Then I might see a post scroll up my Facebook wall. So I've got 15 minutes, then I've got 30 seconds. Then I might meet you at a PSA or a networking event and I get to spend some time with you. So then we're an hour in. So then we've got 3 or 4 different times, and we've got 2 or 3 different ways in which, if I'm allowed to say it, you've exposed yourself to me.
Matron.
So, yeah, matron. But what we're looking for is to get a combination running where we're getting close to those numbers. 7 hours of exposure, 10 different times, 5 different ways. And so I encourage people to print that off, put it up wherever your workplace is. And when you're drinking your coffee, doing your marketing, you're working towards 7 hours, 10 times, 5 different ways. Most people will have 2 or 3, sometimes just 1 or 2 ways that they go to market. And actually, this is this whole concept again about digging lots of little holes. You've got to have 5 or 6 good, strong strategies and then lots of activity behind those. So, and another great analogy that I like to use is, we talk about this at the event in April, is that I talk about playing the drums. So imagine yourself at Covent Garden and you're setting up a full drum kit, okay? And as you're setting up, people are wandering past, but nobody's really stopping. They're just might glance an eye, what's going to be going on here? And they'll disappear, they'll go away. And it's not until you start banging out a beat on those drums that people will start to come around and watch and listen. And even the people that saw you setting up, they won't come back until you start banging the drums. And so this 7-10-5 is actually the noise. I call it the volume of your volume. So you really have to be able to measure and understand how much disruption, how much noise am I actually making? Because actually planning and scoping and building lists and everything else that people tend to do, even going and networking, drinking coffee, eating breakfast and doing nothing is not noise. That's you setting up. So it's the noise element that I try and get.
Define noise to me then. Is that picking the phone up and going, hello, this is me?
That's a classic, real example of being disruptive. So that's why I like the drum kit as an example. If you can hear, even if you're not, it's not in vision, if you can hear that set of drums going off, that's being disruptive.
So how are you disruptive then? What do you do when you apply this to your business? What do you do? Is it pick the phone up? Is it say something outstanding at one of your talks? Not that it's not all outstanding, but I mean, what is it do you do? How do you raise yourself above the, make that noise? So
it's finding, ultimately it's clickbait, isn't it? If you think about it, everything that we do, everything on all of the social platforms is to get likes and clicks, is to get people to come and look. So,
but is that truly making noise, is it? Is that making... That's what I'm after, you see.
Only if it catches people's attention. If it scrolls past me and I haven't seen it, that's you still setting up. If I stop and start to watch or start to listen, now we're making a noise because we've stopped somebody in their tracks. Do you think,
going to become more difficult now? With what's just happening, people are going to think twice about clicking on something.
Right, and this is this whole theme about today is this...
Because I've heard you at one of your talks, and you have said that social media is a waste of time. you've said that, but an essential part of your armoury. I mean,
exactly,
So it's kind of very contradictory, isn't it? We're making noise, we're using social media, we're hoping people will react to what we're doing.
Yeah, so the waste of time element is making sure that what you're doing... So
you wrote it.
Yeah, the reason for putting it that way is that we spend too much time sitting in front of the social platforms thinking that that's all I need to do, and not doing the things that you need to be doing in front of the social platform. So, it's not straight out overtly selling, but what you're trying to do is build community so that when you do have something to sell or something to offer, you can then use that data offline and find ways to get people to buy or to come or to purchase whatever it is.
In your mind's eye, is there an ideal kind of phraseology or a positioning of your brand that you should be using when you're talking on social media? I mean, personally, and this is because I'm an old bloke, but personally, I don't care what... I have enough trouble living my own life without living somebody else's through pictures and images. People that put up what they had for dinner, even to a certain extent who they've met or where they are, I think is pointless.
Yeah, well, we don't have... There's no filters, so we get given what the algorithms want to give us ultimately, and so the choice is we just come away from that. It is that we come off that platform, but then that's like coming off the field, and you've got no chance of scoring a goal. Then it is a mess. Don't get me wrong. I completely think it's a mess because you see things that are wholly inappropriate up on Facebook walls alongside something that you want to grab hold of, and you think, wow, if I hadn't seen that. So, I posted up last week, can anybody recommend a dentist? So there are, and I got flooded with people recommending dentists. So there are occasions when it's completely, you can use it in a completely different way. And then the very next day I'm posting up and promoting things that I'm doing. So
what about the voice of the business on the different platforms? Do you use a different voice when you're on Facebook than when you're on LinkedIn?
So not anymore. I used to, because I used to sort of have these two personas, and I agreed with you. This was like, I don't really want to be posting up pictures of a pint of Guinness on my business page, but by the same token, I'm me. So is getting your head around the fact what's acceptable and how much do you want to share with people who you are. Now, for me, across all the platforms that I use, it's just me. So, the older I've got, the more comfortable I've got in my skin, to the extent that, like me or lump me, this is who I am, and this is what I do. So to the extent I've had people stop following me on Facebook that are friends because they're fed up seeing all my business stuff, and I've had business people say to me, I don't want to know you're down the pub having a pint of Guinness on St Patrick's Day. So but it's freedom of choice.
How much stuff do you post? Because I mean, obviously it's working for you because you're filling seats, you're putting bums on seats. So how much do you post? How active are you?
Daily. So daily, and somebody asked me about this the other day. I tend to have a primary platform of choice for a year. And this year, I really want to understand and tackle Instagram. So I was late to the market with Instagram. So I want to play with Instagram. This is because it's free, So why would this is digging these little holes? Let's find out what it does, how it works, seeing if we can generate some activity that on something that is completely free to use. So why wouldn't you do that?
It's interesting you use the expression free. Somebody said to me that if it's free, then you are the product.
Okay, good line.
Good line, and it seems very true. Okay, then, what about? I mean, we talk a lot. I mean, people are out to sell product and get people to buy things from them. Do you think the whole process of selling? Do you think we proactively still sell? And if we are proactively selling, is that the right technique that we should be using?
So it's a fabulous lead-in, and no surprise from a man of your stature to ask such a great leading question. So, in line with the millennials, I absolutely believe that, and I watch your show frequently. We have lots of people come on that talk about selling, and my caveat is, this is just my view of the world, is that the last 2 cars I bought and probably the last 6 holidays I booked, I didn't speak to a human being. Did not speak to a human being. So if I'm spending vast sums of money, into the 40s, £40,000 on a car, we literally did not speak to a human being. So for the last 2 cars, and most of the holidays over the last 10 years, I haven't needed to speak to.
Is that because of your age? Do you think? I'm not. Honestly, I wasn't being insulted.
No.
I'm thinking that. The older you get, the more you become comfortable in your skin, so you actually know what you want. There are times, I mean, I can't stand it. You go into a high street store, maybe electrical store, can I help you?
Right.
Actually, no, you probably can't. I probably know more about the products that you're selling than you know about the products. All you can probably help me with is to facilitate the payment of them.
There you go. That's the message.
So when you start, you know what car you know what kind of car or what the car is that you want, and all the person will do in a showroom is that they're not going to sell you the car. They're going to show you the key features, aren't they?
Yeah. So
which isn't selling, is it?
The key message to put out here is that we live in a world now where you've just described it perfectly. We go and do research and we go and make our own minds up, and then we go to the person that's providing that product or service and ask them to facilitate the purchase. That happen, a lot. I'm not saying it's in every quarter. Sometimes we need help. We think we know what we want, but we need somebody that's expert in that to actually say, that's not what you want at all. This is what you want. So, but the key message here is making sure that everything that is outward facing in your business, make sure that people understand what it is that you're selling, whether it be a product or service, and that there is enough information there for them to assess and judge you passively before they come to you in order to buy. So that then if you do need to add an element of salesmanship into the sale of that product or service, they're already through their 7, 10, 5 or whatever it is that you've needed to do to get them into that place. So many people walk past your shop literally and don't come in because there's not enough information there, and I say we as consumers will keep looking until we find the information that we need and then go down that rabbit hole, because then I'm starting, that's got this bit of information, that's got that bit of information. So the other thing is, and as you said, we'll go into retail now, and when we go in, we're more prepped than they are. So because we've done our research. Well, if you're not in that game, if you haven't presented passively what's involved in your product or service, that you're going to lose the sale. So
do you put price on websites? Do you think you should be upfront with pricing?
Personal view, I would never go into a jeweller shop where all the price tickets are face down, and so from my very first website, I always, and I know I'm one of the unusual ones, I've always displayed my prices of everything that I do. So it's a great filter. I know one of the arguments is that you take away the opportunity to get in front of somebody and share, you know, the value that they'll get. And you know, you want that engagement, but for me it's a great filter for people to understand actually is this guy at the sort of price point that I'm prepared to pay. So the short answer for me personally is that if you were to ask me one or the other, by action, I've always displayed and shared my pricing.
There we go, a short answer, ladies and gentlemen. International speaker, business speaker, and one of the UK's leading business coaches, Ian Dixon, joining us on today's edition of Business Connections Live. Great to have your company as always. Thank you very much to all the people who download the programme from the different websites. If you do watch the programme at businessconnectionslive.com, thank you very much indeed. A lot of you are downloading the programme and watching it on iTunes, one of the largest sharing platforms on the internet, of course, and we'd like to thank you very much. If you can always help us out when it comes to iTunes by recommending the programme to other iTunes users as well. It's dead easy to do that, incidentally. All you got to do is this. Find and go to your iTunes account, just look at the program. You see all the shows are all listed there, their popularity as well, and then go along to the tab that says ratings and reviews. Click on that and that'll take you to another tab that will say customer reviews. Write a review, something like Ian Dixon didn't understand a word he said, but give him 5 stars, he's a nice bloke. And that recommendation then will actually then help us to promote the program and the analytics and the algorithms of iTunes. If somebody else is watching a business program, when they're finished watching that one, we will be recommended, and that will help us considerably. So please do that on iTunes and help us grow Business Connections Live bigger, brighter and better. You're watching Business Connections Live. My guest on today's show is international business speaker and one of the UK's leading business coaches. His name is Ian Dixon. I feel like I've been playing with you at times today.
Absolutely, I've seen that little wry grin. So this is the price I pay for coming back for a
That's
third
right,
time.
but it's been very enjoyable. I want to make certain that we get some of the key points out. So let's just do a kind of a summary of where we are, and let's see how much information we can get in the last segment here. So a new way of looking at their business. The one piece of advice then you would give is?
Never stop looking at new ways of doing things. Don't go deep into one hole, try lots of different things, because you'll find a flavour that you like, or you'll find a method that's easier for you to work with. So,
super tips on how to market your business then. Social media, obviously?
Social media. Networking has never, ever gone away from my top 3 ways to grow a business. It's just the way that we network, I think, has changed, and the people that network. So networking is crucial. So we've talked a lot about the social platforms today. I'm by no means a social media expert. I'm just somebody that uses it. So the social platforms, networking, events, speaking, giving content away.
Well, this is positioning yourself as an expert, isn't
absolutely,
it?
Which is critical. So, I know we're sort of short on time, but there's a big thing that I learned back end of last year. 8 to 10 years before people start to point at you, you're the last person should ever stand up and say you're an expert. It should be for everybody else to recognise, and that comes just through the activity that you undertake for people to sort of say, if you need to find out about this, speak to that guy or that girl. So, I read lots of papers on it, and 6 to 8 years, 8 to 10 years is the kind of timeline that, and you can't shortcut that. There's no hack. There's nothing that you can do to earn you just have to earn the stripes. There's other things that you can do to hack other elements of it, but to position yourself as an expert, get on stage, write a book, get yourself onto TV, radio, accreditations, award-winning. There's lots of ways that you can leave evidence, but you still need to put the years in to earn the stripes. Everything that I read, and all the experts that are recognised as experts that I spoke to, they were 10, 15 years in. And for me, it was 8, 9 years before people started to say, you need to speak to that guy. So,
even radio stations, they would say that it takes 2 years to build an audience for a brand new presenter or whatever. 10 minutes for them to forget you, though.
There you go. Same as networking, to be honest.
Very fickle, very fickle. Okay, the voice you use, speaking to millennials, speaking to the older statesmen, What voice should you be using?
I don't know if I understand the question.
The voice when you're talking to your audience, do you change your voice, the linguistics that you use, the tone that you use? Is it one message will fit all?
I think the only advice I give about all messages that you're giving out is brevity. There's a fabulous line that says, "My apologies for the length of this letter. If I'd had more time, it would have been shorter." Is that it's hard to compress things down. 3 years ago, I'd have said, 5-6 minute videos is plenty. Now, we're doing some video in April for this event, and the video guys saying to me, "We'll put together 3 30-second adverts for you." So we're into 30-second now. So
why does he say that?
He's a videographer. He's the guy that knows that the millennials and the people that are going to be watching this stuff, the people that ultimately they're all coming through. That's the only amount of time that they'll spend on it, and they'll make their minds up. Let's say we will make our minds up in the first 2 or 3 seconds.
There is some research that suggests that the way we're going is that we will have a shorter attention span than a goldfish. And it's interesting because where that comes from, this is a hobby horse of mine, but that particular piece of research actually has got no foundation whatsoever that we are losing our short attention span. Did you watch television last night?
No.
No? Well, I did. I watched the Durrells last night because it's a Monday. So that was on for an hour. I even put up at the ads. And then I watched, Escape to the Chateau, watched that as well. That was an hour plus the ads. And I watched the Good Karma Hospital. None of those programmes from my memory were 30 seconds long. No. They all lasted an hour.
Are they the same thing, Steve?
But is it not about engaging your audience? Are we losing the key thing about business, about engagement?
So,
when you stand up, how long is your training course that day? How long will you stand and talk for when you're on stage? Will you talk for 30 seconds?
No, but by the very nature of the day, we're cramming 100 business tips into 6 hours. It's 1 every 3 minutes because we don't want for this whole concept. We want to because what we're doing is throwing loads and loads of stuff out in the idea that you're going to find 20.
I'm not battling with you, but Twitter. Up until recently, you could put a 20-second video on Twitter. They've extended it to 2 minutes 20 seconds.
Right.
Why have they done that? Do you think? Because could it be that, you see, this is the danger, isn't it? That we are driven by, I feel like I'm catching you out now, I'm not being confrontational, but what I'm saying is that I think sometimes we forget that it's about engagement. It isn't about duration. Yeah. Duration, if you're interesting, I will watch you all day.
Right. So another one that you could have thrown in the hat here is TED. So, TED has a recognised format of being 22 minutes or whatever it is. This is a very set length of time. So that's not 30 seconds either. So I just think it's for purpose. So understanding the message that you want to get across has different time lengths that are suitable for whatever it is that you're trying to get across. So
if you want to take a swing at me, you're allowed to it. It's good because I do feel that we are...
Your show wouldn't still be going.
No, and it's long form,
over 200 shows.
Over 200 shows,
amazing.
And over an hour in duration. And there's a guy in America who, to a certain extent, this show is based on a guy called Leo Laporte. And he will do every week, if you get a chance, go to the Twit network, This Week in Technology, twit.tv. Leo Laporte used to be on it's technology once again, but he does a program called Mac Break Weekly each and every week, and that program runs for an hour and a half. And there are just a couple of breaks where he has sponsors. Their advertising rates are the national broadcasting advertising rates for an online TV show. An hour and 20 minutes. Yeah. Great shows.
You stood your corner perfectly.
And I'm allowed to, because my show. Tips, ideas, strategies that we can take away and use today. What would be your... I feel like I've beaten you up a wee bit today. But
oh, no, this is good. These are
so
about.
Tips, ideas, strategies, because, what can I take away before I ask you to do your summary?
I think that is to recognise that you should dabble on all platforms and not be intimidated or think that a particular platform may not be good for you. So I think we've given some examples where it's surprising how, for example, estate agencies can make Facebook their primary platform. I think it's recognising that there are new people coming through that are thinking differently, that they're trendsetters, that they are happy to embrace the unexpected, that these people don't work 9 to 5. It's just muddied waters. It's 7 days a week, and I've booked holidays at 10 o'clock at night. So it's making sure that you're accessible 7 days a week. Recognise that one of the questions I say to people, how long are you prepared to do this for? Because it takes time to position yourself as an expert. And I believe that we live in a world where in order to be successful, you need to position yourself as an expert. And irrespective of whether you're a plumber or a coach or somebody that's giving away a service, you need to be able to position yourself as an expert. So, a passive buying as well, I think, is a really important message to get across. Everything that you do should be available and understandable passively. And probably the most beneficial tip I can give people
Stand by, everybody. Here comes the most beneficial tip.
Is money loves speed. Okay, money loves speed. So whatever it is that you're selling, whether it's a service or a product, make sure people know how quickly you'll answer the phone, how quickly you'll go, how much of it you've got in stock. We will spend more money on something that we can have now. So one of the most important messages in business today is the element of speed. How quickly Amazon are probably the biggest example that you can give globally, where I can order something at 8 a.m. and in 2 hours somebody's knocking on my door with that product. So
my guest on today's show has been Ian Dixon. A great show. Will you please give, I know you've kind of done it, but if you can do the summary once again, straight down the camera, say who you are, where you're from. If you want to find out more about Ian and go to his website, you'll find him here at iandixon.com. Ian Dixon, speaker and coach. Unlock your success. You'll see there the big 100 event of the year. Only about 9 tickets or so left on this one. You can click to book now and pay with PayPal. 100 visitors, 100 business owners, £100. £10 deposit secures your place. You can see there if you want to link in with him on Facebook or LinkedIn or any of the other social media platforms, then you can of course do that, and it explains more about the different services that he provides, business coaching and business speaking. It's been a fast. Oh, look at this. Oh, look at that. 13 years coaching, 327 keynotes delivered, 389 businesses coached, 6.2 years retention. Love it. That's fantastic. Great site. Go on. Oh, there's the book.
It's my diary, Business Success Diary.
And what's that all about?
It's a year broken down into quarters, and it's just packed with business tips and advice. It's essentially a book that you would fill in, so it's made that way. It's not something that you'd pull off a shelf. It should be by your...
Is that a real physical book?
Absolutely, yeah.
Will you send us one so we can give it away?
Absolutely, yeah.
We'll give that away if you put down that I enjoyed watching Ian Dixon in the comments below the show, or if you drop us an email saying I enjoyed watching Ian Dixon, we'll send you a copy of that book. So send us your emails. I thank you very much indeed. That would be fantastic. And the address, the email you send it to is studio@businessconnectionslive.com. I tell you what, if you also put it on Twitter, if you just tweet it, I've enjoyed watching Ian Dixon on Business Connections Live on Twitter at BCL Business TV, then we'll pick one of the names out and we'll send it to you. We've just got ourselves a free book. I thank you very much. Straight down the camera lens, the airways are all yours, who you are, where you're from, and the key takeaways from today.
Hi there, my name is Ian Dixon. I am an international business speaker and business performance coach. Some takeaway tips from today is to know that the millennials are here and the millennials do think differently. So the first thing to consider is how much shorter their time span they need for their to understand what it is that you're doing. Passive buyers. We live in a world where we buy passively today, so make sure that everything is outward facing. People understand what it is that you sell. Money loves speed. Make sure that everything that represents you, you demonstrate how quickly you will deliver that product or service. The 3 big numbers are 7, 10, 5, 7 hours of exposure, 10 different times, 5 different ways. So don't dig one big hole, dig lots of little holes. There's my takeaways for you today.
Absolutely fantastic, and my thanks to Ian Dixon. A great show. Listen, thank you ever so much. I've been a bit tougher on you today.
No, I enjoyed it.
I'm normally a nice guy.
I'm not coming back.
You're not coming back. You're dead right. I thank you very much. I'm here all week. Now, coming up on Future Pros, we've got Gordon Colquhoun. He's going to be joining us. We're going to be talking about Brexit readiness, which is going to be a place that we're all going to need to be, I suppose, in a year's time. Peter Liner, he's the chairman of ABLE, will be joining us on the program, the Academy for Business Leaders and Entrepreneurs. A guy called Doug Piddock's going to be on the show. He's from a company called Intermedia Communications Solutions. Now, he's got a fantastic piece of web meeting technology. This is a camera that would sit on a desk and it will take a 180-degree video of you. And if you've got 3 people sitting on this side of the desk, when one person starts talking, it will zoom in on them.
Wow.
It is so cool. We're going to be talking about that and the other technology that is out there to make your job in business a little bit easier. Rachel Wild is also going to be joining us from Monochrome. Listen, hope you've enjoyed the programme today. It's been great fun having Ian on the programme. Don't forget, do go to his website at iandixon.com. But from me, Steve Highland, and the rest of the team here today, have yourself a great week in business. And don't forget, tune in next Monday at noon for another show on Business Connections Live.